Welcome back, friends. Welcome back. Welcome back to the latest, this episode of the Psychic Derailleur podcast. No guests today. Kind of a cool, rainy day here in central Indiana. It seems as if autumn has arrived. So I had a few things I wanted to talk about. We're kind of at the end of our cycling season here. There'll be some hardy souls that will still ride through the winter, but for the most part, once we get into October, most of the fair weather cyclists are done. We've got an event here toward the end of the month called the Hilly 100, and you could generally set your clock by the end of the season based on the Hilly 100. When the Hilly 100 was over, it was like somebody flipped a switch. So, taking a sip of delicious Tinker coffee. So I had a customer in the other day, and he posed a question to me, which was, you get these questions, now and again, and he asked me if I was, finger quotes, scared of, finger quotes, not making it based on the products that I was selling. Sort of an indelicate question. But, there's no malice behind it, so, it's not really an issue. But the way I answered it was that, no, I'm not scared at all. And I guess for those of you who don't know, maybe a little backstory is in order. So I started working in bike shops in 1988. But I bought a store in 2003. And that was a traditional kind of what I half jokingly refer to as, cradle to grave bike shop. Little kids' bikes all the way up to, adult trikes. And I owned that store for, 2 months shy of 16 years. And, I closed that store at the end of December 2018 and then started this new project, the following year. Started moving in right after the first of the year in 2019, and then by the end of February, first part of March, I was up and running. So the way that I answered his question at the time was that no, the scary part was, making the decision to try a business, that only sold Surly and Rivendell bicycles. Not two of the most well-known brands in the world. And once I had made that decision, I said, then there was no fear at all. It was either going to work or it wasn't. And the more I thought about it, I don't even think that was really accurate. Really, the fear was all in the past. Having employees that depend on you, it can be scary. Being beholden to a bank or a large, very large bicycle company, and you owe all of the money, that's scary. This isn't scary. This is me essentially being laid bare. I am doing what in my heart I felt like needed to be done. I felt like this for the last decade. But this is me doing exactly what I want to do, and I'm okay one way or the other. If it works, great. I will know that I've probably made some people's lives better, certainly more enjoyable, because they will either have rediscovered cycling or have been able to make it a bigger part of their life because of the products that I ultimately sell. And if it doesn't, I gave it a whack, and I'll know that either I didn't do it right, or this area just wasn't ready for such a thing. So that's that. I know that I've done a handful of these, and I don't know that I've ever talked about kind of my history and why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. Ultimately, the podcast is a more catharsis for me than anything else. I did radio when I was in college. I discovered podcasting very early on. I remember, finagling my way through downloading Adam Curry's podcasts in 2004, I think. And was, had wanted to do one for a very long time, and just finally decided to get off the bench and, do something about it. Again, come what may. So, one of the things that's been going on in the city of Indianapolis is the powers that be floated the idea of a bus rapid transit system for the city, which was going to require a tax increase, a small tax increase. So the referendum was put to a vote, and a majority of the people that live here voted for it. Which, I was all for. And it's, I don't talk about politics, as a general rule. I grew up in a very political family. I think I look at politics a little bit differently than most people. And, if you come into my store, or you're, watching, my videos or listening to my podcast, that ain't why you're here. But I do feel like, especially, living where I live, the middle of the country is pretty conservative. And, but yet I think that there are things that are kind of historically viewed as more liberal policies that are still good for, the people that live in these areas. And I don't know that they should necessarily be thought of as liberal or conservative, Democrat or Republican. Having bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure being one, having access to, a well thought out and robust mass transit system is another. I was in Minneapolis a couple of winters ago, and I had a little time before this conference started, and I wanted to visit a store that was in town, and, went to the concierge at the hotel and said, this is where I want to go, and, how far is it? Like, what do you think a taxi is going to cost? And he just looked at me and said, why don't you take the bus? Now, other than high school swim meets, I probably had not been on a city bus since I was 12 years old. And I think he saw the the confusion in my eyes. And he says, look, it may cost you $15 or $20 to take a taxi there. It's going to cost you $1.75. How long are you going to be in the store? I said, maybe 15, 20 minutes. He goes, hell, you transfer and, you're going to, the whole trip's going to cost you $1.75. Just go down around the corner, yada, yada, yada. And he convinced me, and I did, and was sort of amazed at how easy it was and the number of people and the wide cross-section of people that were using the bus. So they floated this idea of a bus rapid transit system in the city of Indianapolis, and they were going to have ultimately, I think, 3 or 4 lines, but they were going to start with this main north-south corridor. And almost immediately, the bitching and moaning started. Now, we had been through this already with bike share. Whoever they are, decided that we were going to get a bike share system in Indianapolis. And I'm sure you know, but if you don't, bike share is basically, they have corrals, and it costs X amount of dollars for X amount of time. And if you are visiting downtown and you want to ride from one end of downtown to the next, then, you can do it by bicycle. And there's bike trails and things like that to allow you to do that safely. So, and I heard the kvetching then that this was never going to work in Indianapolis. Why are we spending this money? Nobody's going to use this. And lo and behold, it's one of the most successful and one of the most used bike share systems in the country. And, it's been up and running for, I think, don't quote me, 3 or 4 years now. And they just added like another 270 bikes and another handful of stations that are just continuing to fan out from the downtown area. Look, Indianapolis has some real challenges. It's a very large city. Excuse me, and I'm not necessarily from a population standpoint. Back in the 70s, at some point, the then mayor decided that they were going to basically swallow up all these little villages, towns, and municipalities surrounding the city of Indianapolis. And, by doing that, they increased the tax base enough that it allowed us to get an NFL team. Great. But it makes it very difficult to go anywhere, other than in an automobile. You have to be very dedicated, and excuse me, you have to really think it out if you're going to go any distance. Those things are getting better. They're continuing to, build greenways, add bike lanes, add protected bike lanes. What's lacking now is the connectivity. And, I'm still waiting. And I'm not getting any younger, so I wish they'd step on the gas. Because the driving, and I know that this is not, we're not alone, but the way that people act behind the wheel of an automobile is devolving at, from what I can tell, a pretty rapid pace. And that's not conducive to my wanting to go out and travel by bike, much less somebody that has, much less experience than do I. I'm sure where you live, it's probably close to the same. So one of the things that I had decided, since this was going to be a solo operation, this new business of mine, that not only was it going to be based around, an appointment, scheduling type of thing, at least half the time. The other part of it was that, I was going to basically go to appointment only through the winter, and I didn't know exactly when that would be. And with the understanding that this is going to date this podcast somewhat, we're in the middle of October now, and so in November, I'm going to go to appointment only, and I'm going to be that way and through February. And then in March, we'll go back to, things will start to warm up, and we'll go back to normal operating schedules. I've talked a lot about the Bridge Club, the Surly Bridge Club of late. And if you're watching this on YouTube, perhaps you've seen the videos that I've done. If you're not watching it on YouTube, if you're just listening to this, first of all, thanks. Second of all, subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I do more than just plop videos of me talking into a microphone for X number of minutes. But the Bridge Club is, a relatively new bike from Surly. Initially brought out as more of an off-road touring bike. But honestly, one of the nicest riding, if not the nicest riding bike that Surly has come up with. This is my opinion, of course, but I was so excited about this bike that, I spent my own money on one of these. And, talk to any bike shop owner and ask them when the last time they actually opened their wallet and spent their own money on a bike. It doesn't happen that often. What happens is you get in an order of bikes, you go, well, I guess I'll ride that one for a while, and you ride it for a year, and then you sell it to somebody. So I really like this bike. And now they have a 700C version, so you've got basically a pavement type version and more of an off-road version. It's just a marvelously versatile bike, and is as close as I think you're ever going to get to that one bike that will do damn near everything. Yeah, really, really good. Really, really good. Surly just continues to, I think, hit it out of the park. I've been really thinking about taking the plunge and bringing some cargo bikes in for the locals that are listening. I would appreciate maybe some input on that. If you think that, again, the city can support something like that, or would support something like that. Yeah. Surly, again, very, they have an unbelievable cargo bike, and then one that's got, that's battery powered pedal assist. Very, very good. I'm just going through my notes here because I actually had to write a few things down so that I wouldn't forget about what I wanted to talk about. Yeah. I don't know. I think that was about it. Certainly didn't go as long as I thought I would, but I think the main thing I wanted to address is just kind of why I've done the things that I've done, and I'm staring down the barrel of 54. I'll be 54 years old next month, and I really, really believe that there is a very large part of the population that's my age, and let's say 20 years on either side of me, that have really been underserved by the traditional, not necessarily the traditional bike shop. I can't put the blame really on them, but it's the industry in general and how the industry has been tailored. That it's all been about racing bikes for so long. And I think it's just, the word disenfranchised gets thrown around a lot, but in this case, I think there really have been some people that have been disenfranchised by the way that this bike business has been set up for the last 30 years. I mean, you can go back as far as Greg LeMond. I was in the business at that point. That's the point when racing bikes became the bread and butter of what went on in bike shops, and that and the attitude, came along with it. So I would say if you were my age, again, plus or minus, and you've been to bike shops and you just don't feel like there's anything there for you, or you've taken someone's advice and you've bought a bike and you just think, it's just cycling just must not be for me, I would say don't lose hope. There are products out there that will allow you to ride much more comfortably, that will, I think, increase your enjoyment exponentially. You just have to find the right shop and the right people. And I'm available to chat anytime. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I didn't keep you too long. And as always, thank you for listening. My shop on the web is thepsychicderailleur.com, PSYCHICDERAILLEUR.com. And I wonder why I named it that every time I have to spell it. As always, thanks for listening and or watching. Until next time, be nice, work hard, ride bikes, play music when you can. I'll talk to you soon.